It is a new month, and we're beginning to explore a new awakening factor. We've already explored mindfulness, investigation, and energy. And now, during the month of December, we'll focus on the next factor, which is joy. So, what a pleasure to spend a month deepening into joy. I wonder if you ever think of joy as kind of frivolous in these times we're living in. When the world is in disarray, do you ever have the thought, how can I be happy or feel joy when there's so much suffering happening? Or I don't deserve it, or I feel guilty for feeling joy when those around me are hurting. If that rings true for you, and I know there are times when I feel this way, then listen to what the Buddha said. This is from the Dhammapada. He said, live in joy and love, even among those who hate. Live in joy and health, even among those who are sick and afflicted. Live in joy and peace, even among the troubled. Look within, quiet the mind and heart. Be still and free from fear and attachment, and know the sweet joy of living in the way. Joy is not frivolous. It's not an extra or an afterthought. It's both welcome and necessary, and it's especially relevant in dark times. We might think of joy as one of the fruits of the practice, which it definitely is, but it's also an essential part of the practice that leads us forward towards awakening. Joy can help bring us spaciousness to our hearts and minds and inspire us along the path. It might be surprising to those who think that Buddhism is all about suffering, but joy shows up a lot in the Buddhist texts. We've explored the heart practices, right? The Brahma Viharas, and specifically mudita, which is sympathetic joy, the open heart that feels joy for someone else's happiness. And there's sukha, which is a sustained happiness or sense of ease, which is often described in contrast to dukkha, that unsatisfactoriness that we might feel in the world. And there's Pitta, the fourth of the awakening factors, which is translated as joy or bliss or rapture. It's a joy that arises from within us and is not dependent on outside circumstances. It has nothing to do with what great experience we had, what beautiful home we own, or what incredible place we traveled to. Instead, it arises from a deepening understanding and sense of freedom from greed and aversion. As the Dalai Lama says, Pitta is an inside job. We create the conditions for joy to arise by wholeheartedly committing to our practice, by leaning into the preceding awakening factors that we've spoken of: mindfulness, investigation, sustained energy, and learning to live skillfully in ways that lead us away from suffering and towards more ease. And then Pitta naturally arises, and it grows over time and with practice. Every one of us knows this quality. We experience it in our practice in those moments when we're able to settle and fully be with just this breath, or this sound, or this sensation, nothing extra, complete just as it is. And joy arises. And it's quiet, and contented. And we know Pitta also in those moments when we, quote unquote, get it. When we come to understand something in our experience more clearly and more deeply than we have before. I sometimes call these aha moments. And there's a joy in that too. And this might feel a bit more like a yippee. Wow, I never saw that so clearly before. So there are different textures to Pitta and various levels of energy associated with it. We have the tendency to miss it because of our deeply embedded inclination to focus on the hard stuff. We either don't recognize it when it arises, or we tend to overlook it. We do need to take Susan's advice and make much of joy when it comes up to get to know it better. So, just for a moment, think about what joy feels like to you in the body, in the heart, in the mind. What words might you use to describe how it feels? And I offer you to put a word in the chat if you want to, of what comes up for you. For me, just going to throw some words out. Aliveness, that's great. Energy. Ease, yeah, these are great. Warmth, spaciousness, content, lightness. That's great. All the things I've thought of. I might add clarity of mind, glowing, awe. I think sometimes in the body, it almost can feel like a tingling or a rising in the chest, sweet. And we can focus on the energies. It can be quiet and calm. It can be energetic and exuberant. So I encourage you to get to know joy as part of your practice. Ah, I like that. So now, this is the best part about Pitta. It really doesn't matter what we're experiencing. It doesn't matter whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. Joy can arise if we're in right relationship with the experience. So I'm going to offer an example, which is kind of a silly one, but I think it works. It might be that we're feeling an itch while we're meditating. And honestly, I don't know what it is about itches, but I find them very hard to not be reactive towards. So anyways, the itch is unpleasant. It's on the cheek or on your neck or some sensitive part of your body. And we're mindful enough to not immediately react and scratch the itch. Instead, we notice the sensations of the itch. We notice the constriction of the rest of the body in resisting the urge to scratch. We notice what's happening in the mind, how it's reacting. My mind is usually just screaming when I want to itch. There's a lot going on in this little moment, and it's pretty unpleasant. And we practice to find some space around it, to settle a bit, calm a bit. So we may become less entangled and dragged down by the resistance and more able to just allow the itch as it is. This is our practice. We know this. And notice there is a sense of freedom when we're more allowing. Maybe freedom seems like too strong a word for an itch, but it truly is a sense of freedom when we're less reactive and more able to choose our response. To itch or not to itch. To get agitated or stay more balanced. And in that simple inner freedom is an uplift, a joy. This is a really simple example, but it's the beginning of understanding how joy can arise even in the midst of challenging circumstances, even in the midst of hatred and illness and suffering, as the Buddha described in the verse I read you. Live in joy and love, even among those who hate. We might think this is almost impossible, but really it's similar to relating to the itch. Even in the most difficult circumstances, we find a way to stay grounded, mindful of all that's swirling around, internally and externally, without getting tangled up in it, without resisting the reality of the way things are. And then we find enough openness of heart and mind to choose a skillful response to the situation. And when we speak or act from this place, there's a joy that arises. Not because we solved the situation necessarily, but more because we acted with clarity, without being motivated by greed or aversion. It's a tall order, no question, but it is possible. I've had the opportunity to see portions of this movie called Mission of Joy, Finding Happiness in Troubled Times. And it's the story of the relationship between Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama. Both men who have seen and experienced so much suffering, far more than I can imagine, and who both display a true inner joy. If you've seen the movie or any clips of these two men interacting together, you can't help but notice the lightness of being that they both have. Clearly, it's a joy that's not dependent on their external circumstances. So, what inspirations they are. James Baraz has said that profound understanding of suffering does not preclude awakening to joy. Indeed, it can inspire us all the more to celebrate joyfully the goodness in life. And this is what we see in these two great men. So let them inspire us, and let's practice. So maybe a deep breath or two, a beginning of settling into our bodies, out of our heads. Noticing what it is that you might need right now, just to provide a little more space in your body, a little less tension, a little more alertness. And really taking your time as if this too is part of our practice. And as that begins to feel complete, slowly, in your own time, come into relative stillness. Find your seat. And begin to settle. Right into this place, this moment. And perhaps with one or two deeper than normal breaths. Feel your body. Feel the heaviness of your body as it sits. And gently guide your attention inwardly and begin to explore, what is this inner landscape like this morning or this afternoon? What's it like in this moment? And let your attention become a bit more refined as your mind begins to settle a bit more. And let it rest. Perhaps on your breath, perhaps on another body sensation, perhaps on sounds. Just noticing. Noticing whatever is there. Welcoming it. Allowing it all, pleasant or unpleasant. finding that sense of spaciousness inside that allows for everything. And finding the balance, not so spacious that we space out, and not so focused that we can feel ourselves pushing towards something. Finding that balance. Where we stay attentive, even as we let go of controlling the circumstance. Really thinking of it almost as a dance that we keep adjusting our moves. Notice in the quiet of your practice if there are moments of joy that arise. Not that they hang around, but just that they arise of uplift. Just get to know them. I'm going to end our practice today by rereading the chapter from the Dhammapada that I spoke of. And I'm going to read it in full because there's so much here. It says, live in joy, in love, even among those who hate. Live in joy, in health, even among the afflicted. Live in joy, in peace, even among the troubled. Live in joy without possessions, like the shining ones. The winner sows hatred because the loser suffers. Let go of winning and losing and find joy. There is no fire like passion, no crime like hatred, no sorrow like separation, no sickness like hunger, and no joy like the joy of freedom. Health, contentment, and trust are your greatest possessions, and freedom your greatest joy. Look within, be still, free from the fear and attachment. Know the sweet joy of the way. How joyful to look upon the awakened and to keep company with the wise. How long the road to the man who travels with a fool. But whoever follows those who follow the way discovers his family and is filled with joy. Follow then the shining ones, the wise, the awakened, the loving, for they know how to work and forbear. Follow them as the moon follows the path of the stars.